Headliner Nation, what's going on? Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners. We're on to round 2, or the round of 32, here in our 2021 Fantasy Football Bracket Challenge. We started with 64 players. We're down to 32, and now it's time to find out who's going to be moving on to the Sweet 16. Before we take a look at the winners from the last round, don't forget that you can join our new membership option here on YouTube. It's called Holden Chubb. Right down below the video, it says join. For those of you on iPhone, you can't see it. You'd have to actually be on a computer, but for everybody else, down below this video, there's a join button for $4.99 a month. You're going to get access to exclusive content, a extra live stream in season this year on Sunday mornings. You're going to get a badge next to your name and some sweet emojis that you can use in our live streams or in the comments. Make sure y'all hit the like button on this video, and if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, y'all should subscribe as well. I guarantee you that you will not be disappointed. But let's take a look at our round of 32 winners. We're going to start in the quarterback bracket and work our way out from there. The number 1 seed going up against the number 3 seed. And, of course, Patrick Mahomes is walking away with this victory over Kyler Murray by 85%. Not surprised at all. I personally, I'm loving Kyler Murray again this year. 85% seems a little bit high, but not really. I mean, Patrick Mahomes could win with 100% of the votes, and I'm not going to be surprised whatsoever. He'll probably end up running all the way through this bracket. If there was one guy outside of Josh Allen that I thought might give Patrick Mahomes a run for his money, it would be Kyler Murray, but Patrick Mahomes taking over the dub here, 85% of the votes going up against Kyler Murray. The number 2 versus the number 5 seed, Josh Allen beating Dak Prescott with 79% of the votes. Not really surprised here either. Dak Prescott obviously getting the upset win in round 1, but was not able to get through the second round of games here. 79% going to Josh Allen. I mean, the step forward that Allen took in 2020 was absolutely unbelievable. Huge ups to him and the Bills coaching staff for helping him get there. If Dak Prescott had been healthy all season long last year, then I think this vote might end up being a little bit closer. I think Prescott would be much more of a commodity in fantasy football this year, but he is coming off that leg injury, obviously. And the one thing about Prescott is he's going to throw the ball a ton, but so is Josh Allen. So this is one of these matchups where you look at where is the ceiling each week, and you got to go with Josh Allen because he's going to be moving the ball on the ground a little bit as well. He's going to call his own number at the goal line. That's going to help out. Dak Prescott has been known to run a little bit and score some rushing touchdowns, but who knows if he'll be doing that nearly as much this year coming back from that leg injury. The 11 seed taking down the 16 seed, Matthew Stafford winning with 77% of the vote going up against Trevor Lawrence. Stafford getting his opportunity and maybe his best offense to date. Not to take anything away from some of the players that he's played with in the past, especially like Calvin Johnson. But this is the team that's given him the best offensive line with the best receivers, with the best run game, with the best coaching staff that he has had in his entire career. Excited to see what he can do, and I think a lot of fantasy owners are as well. Trevor Lawrence getting a win over Jalen Hurts in round 1. A little bit of an upset there, but he won't be able to go any further here. He's going to have some good weapons around him as well, but you really have to give Matthew Stafford the nod over Lawrence. Our last quarterback matchup, Tommy Goat. This one was a lot closer than anticipated. 54% of the vote going to Tom Brady, barely beating Joe Burrow. I was absolutely shocked. I thought Tom Brady would beat Joe Burrow pretty easily. So it's going to be really interesting to see who wins that Brady versus Stafford matchup. That's going to be the next matchup. It's going to be interesting to see where Headliner Nation goes with those two, just because I think that does. You take a look at some efficiency versus volume. The younger quarterback going into the new system, the older quarterback that spent his first year in the system last year, that brings everybody back this year. I mean, this is going to be a good matchup next time. But if Joe Burrow gave Tom Brady this much of a run for his money, I cannot imagine how close it could end up being for Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady. Tommy Goat moving on, 54% of the vote, really expecting a big year out of him. Honestly, he could end up putting up some MVP type numbers with the weapons that he has. Moving on to the running back position, 1 versus 3. The 1 seed, Christian McCaffrey, 76% of the vote. This one kind of shocked me as well. I didn't think Derrick Henry was going to beat Christian McCaffrey. Why? Well, because obviously in this day and age, and I mean, we see it all the time in our comments when we do rankings and things like that. People say all the time, well, I'm not interested in Derrick Henry. I'm not interested in Nick Chubb. They don't do anything in the passing game. Things like that, okay? We see those comments all the time. And while, yes, they are valid to a certain point, I think sometimes they're a little bit, they make fantasy owners a little bit too uneasy with their picks. I mean, when you've got a guy like Derrick Henry who gets the type of volume he does, I mean, that's a pretty safe bet. Yes, the ceiling might not be high as McCaffrey every single week, but quite honestly, he's going to be getting the workload week after week after week after week. They've added a lot of weapons in Carolina, so maybe McCaffrey won't need to be used in the passing game as often. He's coming back from an injury, so do they bring back his workload a little bit at all? Those are all things to keep in mind. So 76% of the vote going to McCaffrey did catch me a little bit off guard, but I think part of it is here, again, with Derrick Henry, that there are some people who are worried about that workload. But again, Derrick Henry is built different. He doesn't get tackled by people. He runs people over, and they just happen to get in his way enough that it brings him down too. I mean, when was the last time you saw Derrick Henry take a shot that some of these quarterbacks take? Or when's the last time you saw Derrick Henry get hit where you're like, ooh, that was a bit... It hasn't happened. Derrick Henry doesn't get tackled like that. And that's why it's just a little bit different of a workload, because he's not taking those big shots that a lot of other running backs are. The 2 versus 5 seed, a little bit closer, but not by much. Dalvin Cook beating Alvin Kamara, 73% of the vote going to Dalvin Cook. Not really surprised here. I did see a few people in the comments that maybe acted surprised, thinking that Kamara should have won here. But when you look at not knowing the quarterback situation, and we're going to talk about that more here in a minute when we get to the wide receivers, not knowing the quarterback situation, it's really hard to bank on Kamara right now, because last year when Taysom Hill was the starter, Kamara did nothing in the passing game. Like, his ceiling absolutely disappeared. I mean, he was still getting the bulk of the carries on the ground, so floor wasn't bad, but his ceiling disappears because he wasn't getting any targets in the passing game. Are they going to be able to fix that this year? Jameis Winston, in my mind, has to be the starter to really give Alvin Kamara the ceiling that we've been used to seeing from him. So seeing a guy like Dalvin Cook here in the number 2 spot, who will be going up against Christian McCaffrey in the next round, that's going to be an interesting battle there to see who comes out as the top running back in the bracket. The number 9 versus number 11 seed, Aaron Jones winning with 70% of the vote over Cam Akers. Aaron Jones, honestly, he's coming in at number 9 right now. We just did our running back rankings not too long ago, and honestly, I don't think I'm high enough on Aaron Jones. Last year, I was concerned about him. Adding A.J. Dillon, I thought he was going to lose some of his goal line carries. He scored so many touchdowns. I didn't think he was going to be able to replicate him enough to keep some of that ceiling as high as what we had seen. But Aaron Jones is just so damn good, ladies and gentlemen. I'm definitely not skipping on him in 2021. We've got a lot more really, really good information for all of you. The dynamic running back rating, which is in the draft guide, that is going to have a pretty good write-up on Aaron Jones and why you should not be passing on him. I mean, the dude is just an absolute beast. He doesn't have to worry about Jamal Williams, and we know that, yes, A.J. Dillon is there, but A.J. Dillon isn't going to make a big enough impact to take away enough points from Aaron Jones that he's still not a guy that can finish as a top 5 option every single week. The 10 versus 13 matchup. I thought we were going to have an upset here, but it didn't happen. Austin Ekeler beating Antonio Gibson with 67% of the vote. I thought Antonio Gibson would win this, and I thought he would win it easily, to be honest with you all. I just think that we must have a lot of Austin Ekeler fans that don't come to his defense in our comments. I mean, I don't see a whole lot of comments in defense of Austin Ekeler. Normally when people comment about him on our channel, they're like, oh, you guys are way too high. He's not an all-around back. He can't do this or he can't do that. We got burned by him last year. All these different things, all these negative comments towards Austin Ekeler. So I thought for sure Antonio Gibson, because I know we have a lot of Antonio Gibson truthers out there. No one bigger than our very own Trey Wingo, Mr. Mac. Okay. Mac getting in on Antonio Gibson really, really early last year. Matt Galloway here at the Fantasy Headliners. So I thought he was going to get the win, and it wasn't even that close. Ekeler ends up winning with 67% of the votes. That caught me off guard, and it caught me off guard, honestly, like the 1 versus 3 matchup in the wide receiver bracket. I thought Stefon Diggs would beat Davante Adams. Just all the uncertainty right now around Aaron Rodgers and what's happening with him. Davante Adams still showed up with over 60% of the votes. I didn't think that he was going to beat Stefon Diggs. I thought when people looked at it and said, in 2021, if I absolutely had to pick one of these guys right now at this point in time, I'm going to take Stefon Diggs, not knowing what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. Now, personally, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going anywhere. I think he's going to stay put. I think he'll still be in Green Bay at the start and the end of the year. And then we'll talk about it later on next season or whatever. But Stefon Diggs, he has Josh Allen. You know how this offense runs. We saw it last year. The connection there is great. I thought Stefon Diggs would pull off the upset over Davante Adams, and it didn't happen. So can the number 2 seed pull off the upset? Tyreek Hill beating DeAndre Hopkins with 69% of the vote. Tyreek Hill, obviously, he's got the best quarterback in the league. This is a dude that could make a run all the way to the end. We know those boom games will always be there. What's going to happen with this offense this year? Obviously, you still have Travis Kelce. Do we try to get CEH more involved? Whatever it may be, any question that you could potentially ask about Tyreek Hill, you're probably not going to find an answer to bring his value down. A tough matchup here for Hopkins. Hopkins is a guy that I think a lot of people are looking at right now and just seeing the way Kyler Murray played towards the end of last season instead of how he played before he got hurt. And that's my biggest thing with Kyler Murray. I think he's going to end up being just fine, but really not surprised here that DeAndre Hopkins ends up losing to Tyreek Hill. The 9 versus 11 seed, I thought we were going to have an upset here as well. I thought Allen Robinson was going to pull off the win over Keenan Allen, and it didn't happen. Allen Robinson, a guy, he's probably getting the best quarterback that he's ever played with, and it doesn't matter who starts, whether it be Andy Dalton or Fields, it just doesn't matter. He's going to have the best quarterback he's ever played with, Justin Fields or Andy Dalton. I mean, that's just how it is. He's played with Blake Bortles, Nick Foles, Mitchell Trubisky, and now he gets a couple of decent options. So I thought maybe because of that, Allen Robinson would finally start to get a little bit more. People like him because this is what it is with Allen Robinson. I think people, treat him like one of those foods. It's not your favorite food. It's like, yeah, I know I could eat that. Like, it always sounds good to you, right? Like, for me, I'm a big dip fan, okay? I like different types of dip, okay? I mean, you like, hey, Kyle, I got some buffalo chicken dip. It's not my favorite, okay? I don't want it all the time. But if we make some buffalo chicken dip, I'm going to be like, you know what? I like that. I'm going to have a little bit. You know what? I'm never going to turn down some buffalo chicken dip, okay? It's good. It's not filling. It's not the only thing that you want to have. The ceiling of buffalo chicken dip isn't that great, but it's good, right? Well, that's the way Allen Robinson has been. And I just think that people are looking at Keenan Allen and seeing the ceiling he had last year with Justin Herbert, and that offense still being very, very popular right now just was not enough to take down Allen Robinson. So he's going to move on to the next round to face Terry McLaurin getting the upset over Mike Thomas. And I mentioned a minute ago that, we talk a little bit more about the quarterback situation when we went into wide receivers. So, again, right now, it's just who's going to be the starting quarterback. That's the biggest thing right now. Who's going to be starting? Is it Hill or Winston? We don't know. I know that Michael Thomas is going to get peppered with targets. He's going to have a good floor. But if Taysom Hill is the starter, I don't think Taysom Hill gives him the ceiling that Terry McLaurin has with Ryan Fitzpatrick. We know Fitzmagic is going to be bombing it down the field all game, every game, airing it out. Terry McLaurin is going to be his main target. We know that ceiling is going to be absolutely high with McLaurin every single week. And Mike Thomas with Taysom Hill probably will not have that same ceiling. And that's probably one of the reasons why Terry McLaurin with 58% of the vote gets the upset here over Michael Thomas. Over in our tight end bracket, Travis Kelce getting the win over Darren Waller pretty easily with 81% of the votes. I thought this one might be a little bit closer, but quite honestly, we know that Travis Kelce is probably coming out of this bracket as the winner, right? The number one tight end, the guy that's going to be first tight end off the draft board every single year, gets the win over Darren Waller here. But what surprises me the most is the 2 versus 4 seed, George Kittle with 88% of the vote over TJ Hawkinson. I thought Hawkinson might hold up a little bit better here. I mean, when you look at it, George Kittle has really dealt with injuries every single year in the league. Now, it's not that I hate George Kittle or anything like that. He's a great player. It's just when you look at those things, do you really want to add a guy to your team that is going to be, maybe consistently dealing with an injury when you can add a guy like TJ Hawkinson, who we know at the tight end position is probably going to be one of the safer tight ends this year because that defense is going to be bad again in Detroit. They don't really have the weapons to take looks away from TJ Hawkinson. He took a step forward last year. Can he take another step forward this year? With Jared Goff, is he going to be that safety blanket for him? We know TJ Hawkinson is going to get targets repeatedly. So for me, when I look at George Kittle and I say, man, he's a guy that's dealt with a lot of injuries, I thought people would say, you know what, TJ Hawkinson might be a little bit of a safer bet. I'm going to go with him. And not very many of you did. That's okay, though. We know George Kittle is going to ball out anytime he is on the field. A very narrow win. Number 9 versus number 11 seed. Logan Thomas, 51% of the vote, barely getting in over Mike Gesicki. Gesicki, in real life football, this, offense has all the makings of a team that can be really, really good. For fantasy football purposes, though, it's going to be tough. If you look at Logan Thomas, you have to expect that Logan Thomas is going to be the number 2 or the number 3 seed. He could end up being either the number 2 target behind Terry McLaurin or the number 3 target behind McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, potentially. So there's some different things here with the Washington football team that could happen that will still allow Logan Thomas to get a decent amount of targets. However, Mike Gesicki, we don't know what he could be any single week. He could be the number 1 target. He could be the number 4 target. You've got Jalen Waddle. You've got Will Fuller. You've got Devontae Parker. And that's where those issues come into play is he going to be the 4th target this week or is he going to be the 1st target this week? With Logan Thomas, he's either going to be the 2nd or the 3rd. So his floor being probably a little bit safer than Gesicki. Gesicki's, honestly, I would have to anticipate being a little bit higher. When you have all those weapons on the field, Gesicki's going to be able to run out to the middle of the field, just stand there, and he's going to be wide open basically every single time. So the only thing standing really between Gesicki and a big year is Tua finding him on a consistent basis. And the final matchup in the round of 32, Robert Tonyan takes down Irv Smith Jr. in this interdivisional rivalry here. Green Bay, Minnesota. Robert Tonyan, a guy that was playing defensive end just a couple of years ago on the practice squad last year, comes up as a tight end, and look what the guy does. Now, Last year, a lot of his fantasy value was based around touchdowns. And at the tight end position, you take the points any way you get them, right? You don't split a whole lot of hairs at the tight end position. But we do know with Irv Smith Jr., the range of outcomes this year is going to be very, very large. He could finish anywhere as high as tight end 3. He could finish anywhere as low as probably tight end 15, honestly. But there's no Kyle Rudolph. He's going to be at least, I would hope, the third option. But again, when you look at it, you say, will he really? I mean, if Dalvin Cook gets a lot of work in the passing game, then he's probably the fourth option there. So we're looking at hopefully a lot of red zone targets, which in that case, why would you go with him over, Big Bob Tonyan, the pancake lumberjack, as I'm calling him from now on? Why would you go with him over Bob Tonyan? But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the round of 32. Keep an eye on our community tab. It's really, really important, Headliner Nation. I looked at the analytics the other day. There is only 16,000 of you that have all of your notifications turned on for this channel. Let's see if we can get that number above 17,000, all right? So at the end of this video, turn on the notifications for this channel. So anytime we go live or anytime we post content, you are going to be made aware of it and you can get into it right away. I'm going to be posting the next round of voting here in the next couple of days so you can all vote, and then I'll go ahead and record another video. We'll work our way through. The Sweet 16 will end up being next, Headliner Nation. Make sure you hit that like button on the video. If you're new here, subscribe, and in the comments below, let me know which matchup surprised you the most. Did somebody win that you really think shouldn't have? Let me know down in the comments. I'm going to get out of here, but ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.